The Meanings of the Quran. Volume 7. Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. The Meanings of the Quran. Mutalib al-Furqan, Volume 7. Allama G.A Parwez. Talooi Islam Trust. Title of the book, The Meanings of the Quran, Volume 7. Author, Allama G.A Parwez. Translated by, Dr. Ejaz Rasool, Glasgow, UK. ISBN number, 9798675437641. Contact, Talooi Islam Trust 25B Gulberg 2. Lahore 54660 Pakistan www.islamicdawn.com. List of other works, in English, by the author. 1. Exposition of the Quran. 2. Islam, a challenge to religion. 3. What is Islam? Available on Amazon. 4. The Book of Destiny. 5. The Quranic Laws. 6. Reasons for the decline of Muslims. 7. Letters to Tahira. 8. The Human Self and Iblis, available on Amazon. 9. Lugat al-Quran, Dictionary of Quranic Words and Terms, Volume IN 2, available on Amazon. 10. The Quranic System of Sustenance, available on Amazon. 11. The Life in the Hereafter, What Does the Quran Say? Available on Amazon. 12. The Status of Hadith in Islam, available on Amazon. 13. The Human Self and Allah, available on Amazon. 14. The Quranic Perspective on Slavery and Concubines, available on Amazon. These books are also available free for download on http://www.islamicdawn.com, www.parwez.tv. For further details contact, Talooi Islam Trust. 25, B, Gulberg 2. Lahore, 54660, Pakistan. Email, talooiislam@gmail.com. Telephone, 0092 0 4235753666. WhatsApp, 0092310480 0818. About the author. Allama G.A Parwez was born in Butala, Punjab, in British India on July 9, 1903 into a profoundly religious family. His grandfather, who was deeply religious and belonged to the Hanafi school of thought, was a renowned religious scholar who intended to make the author inherit his knowledge and religious understanding. As a consequence, his education and training were carried out under the direction of his grandfather. While he studied the traditional religious teachings, he also had the desire and inkling to question its content using his intellect and reasoning. This led to his inner conflict with the external religious environment, and he continued to question the prevalent religious concepts and practices. He noticed that whatever was being taught as part of the religion was being referred to some imam or religious scholar for authority. It was also noted in the religious literature that whatever the forefathers had followed should be obeyed without any question, and this was considered to be a requirement of Islam. For Parwez, this did not satisfy his desire to seek reason and logic in every claim and statement made within the religious literature. However, he could not express these doubts and reservations initially due to his respect for his grandfather, and the constraints of the religious environment which prevailed at the time in his town. Later, due to his employment, he moved to Lahore, now part of Pakistan, and found a degree of freedom to question some of these religious concepts and beliefs. After the death of his grandfather, he found complete freedom to pursue his line of inquiry and research into the prevalent Islamic beliefs, doctrines, ideologies, and religious practices. This led to his discovering that most of these have been acquired from others. He tried to study the Quran using the traditional religious approach but was unable to find the answers to all his doubts, which required satisfaction from a logical point of view. He also studied the life of the last messenger and the establishment of the Islamic State in the 7th century in his quest to determine the cause which contributed to this greatest revolution based on the Quran. He especially paid attention to the statement from the last messenger that, the Quran is not a product of my thinking or that of any other human being, and that this is the message from Allah. He soon learned the procedure to understand the Quran. Through his contact with the famous philosopher and poet, Allama Iqbal, who had a deep interest in the Quran, Parwez concluded that to understand the Quran one has to understand three fundamentally important points. 1. The Quran calls itself light, nur, and a light does not need any external source or aid to make itself visible. It makes itself evident and also exposes the reality of those things which are within its domain. 2. The Quran is revealed in the Arabic language, and to understand it correctly one needs to understand the Arabic context which was prevalent at the time of its revelation. 3. The Quran has guided us by saying that through tasrif al-ayat, through cross-reference within the verses of the Quran, it makes its guidance clear, e.g. c. 6:106. In order to meet the second requirement regarding the precise meaning of the Arabic words in the Quran, he researched and compiled a Lughatul Quran, now translated into English, which is a dictionary of all the words and terms used in the Quran, and which includes the meanings which were prevalent among the Arabs at the time of the revelation of the Quran. For the third requirement of tasrif al-ayat, the Quran is different from books written by human beings, whereas the latter are usually divided based on various subjects. The Quran is based on mentioning a reality in one verse or verses, and then its further explanation is noted at another place or places. For example, in Sura Al-An'am the Quran states, "And thus do we explain the signs by various verses, so that they acknowledge you have explained them, and we make the Quran clear for a people who know." 6:105. In order to meet this requirement, Parwez felt the need to compile all the verses under one subject as referred in various verses of the Quran, and he compiled a book in Urdu titled Tabweeb al-Quran, i.e. Classification of the Quran. This made it easy to refer to various subjects and look at all the verses mentioned in the Quran relating to a subject. Along with writing and producing literature on the Quran, Parwez also held a regular weekly meeting in Lahore to deliver a dars, lecture explaining the Quran, in Urdu, and these are also available as audio and video recordings. He dedicated most of his life to researching the Quran and its significance in relation to presenting an alternative solution to human problems, and answering questions relating to human creation, its purpose, and the question of death and the next life. He also participated in the struggle for independence during the period 1938-1947 and the creation of Pakistan, which was based on the ideology of the Quran with a view to establishing an Islamic state for the Muslims of the subcontinent. He worked very closely with the founder of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Quaid-e-Azam or Great Leader, and had regular discussions with him on various aspects of the message of the Quran. In order to support the movement for a separate state for the Muslims of India and to counter the arguments put forward by some of the religious lobby who opposed the creation of Pakistan, he published a monthly journal called Tulu-e-Islam, Dawn of Islam, commencing in 1938. Parwez joined the Indian Civil Service in the Home Department in 1927, and after the creation of Pakistan he migrated to Karachi and continued to serve in the same department till 1955, when he took early retirement and devoted the rest of his life fully to his work on the Quran. He moved to Lahore from Karachi and settled there. He left this life on February 24, 1985 in Lahore, and his body was laid to rest in Lahore. Forward. Mutalab al-Furqan is that eminent series of writings by Allama Parwez which now does not need any introduction. Right from the beginning it has been his thinking that a comprehensive solution for the problems of human life should only be sought for in the light of Quranic instructions. Consequently, he commenced presenting the tafsir of the Quran from the Quran itself. The first 5 volumes of the series presented to the readers earned great appreciation during his lifetime. Volume 6 was ready for publication when he departed this life for the next destination of the journey of life. Consequently, this volume was published after his demise. Allama Parwez had drafted the manuscript for Volume 7 in October 1984, before becoming unwell, but the responsibility for editing fell to the share of, firstly, Mr. Amir Ud Deen Butt, and later to Mr. Hassan Abbas Rizvi. This volume owes its beautifully written script to Mr. Muhammad Saeed Qutbi. Mr. Syed Shafkat Habib did the corrections to the draft script. The listing of the chapters was done by Mr. Aladida and Mr. Muhammad Umar Daraz, while indexing was done by Professor Rafiullah Shahab. Tului Islam Trust is grateful to all these individuals who helped in the organization, writing, scripting and publication etc. of this book. It would not be fair not to mention the late Sheikh Abdul Hamid, whose dedication during this whole process helped to make this work reach its completion. Finally, we consider it appropriate to conclude with a quote from Allama Parwez about the comprehension of the Quran while presenting Mafhum al-Quran. At the end, I would like to repeat this fact again, that whatever has been presented in the Mafhum al-Quran, it is a human endeavor to understand the Quran, and human effort can neither be free from error and mistake, nor can it ever be stated to be the final word. In connection with the understanding of the Quran, I have adopted a fresh style. If this effort of mine is fruitful, then those possessing better potentials than myself will make it clearer and clearer, and in this way this process will keep advancing forward, traversing its evolutionary phases according to the law of the universe. The process of the understanding of the Quran can neither end in any period of time, nor can it stop after having reached any human being. This is a perpetually flowing stream which possesses potentials for infinite vastness. As human knowledge keeps becoming vaster, the Quranic realities will keep becoming unveiled, and this process will continue as such. This is to continue until the dawn arrives. 97:5. Dr. Zahida Khanum Durrani, Chief Executive. Tului Islam Trust, registered, 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore, Pakistan. February 13, 1991. Translator's note. This is an English translation of the Tafsir in Urdu titled Mutalab al-Furqan, Volume 7, by Ghulam Ahmad Parwez. This volume covers Surah Yusuf, Chapter 12, Surah Ar-Ra'd, Chapter 13, Surah Ibrahim, Chapter 14, and Surah Al-Hijr, Chapter 15. The Quran is not a book of religion. It is a book which defines a system called Deen and provides guidance for the whole of mankind for all times. The concept of Allah as detailed in the Quran is different from any other concept of God given in other books of religion present among the other religions of the world, and this makes the Quran unique. For further details regarding this, see the book titled The Human Self and Allah by the author. This work authored by Parwez is unique in the sense that he interpreted the Quran from the Quran itself. Following extensive research, study, and analysis of the religious literature available during his time, he came to the conclusion that the Quran, being a complete book of guidance, has to be understood from the book itself. In other words, in order to understand all the values given in the Quran and to see what aspects of human problems and human psyche have been addressed, its values and principles need to be examined from many different aspects, i.e., through cross-referencing, in order to understand them fully. To address the problems facing humanity, it is necessary to refer to all the relevant verses given in the Quran in relation to any particular issue to fully grasp its application in today's world. For example, the account of the tussle between Pharaoh and Bani Israel is noted at several places in various surahs. During our life in this world there are many questions and issues which arise in our minds to which we seek answers, and if the Quran declares itself to be guidance from Allah for the whole of mankind for all times, then we should expect it to provide answers which appeal to our intellect and are based on evidence. In my own study of the Quran, I have found it to be precisely this, providing logical explanations for human behaviors and then pointing towards optimum solutions. Once we understand the definition of Iman as given in the Quran and then accept Iman for ourselves and begin to act in its path, we see that true reality starts to become ever clearer. Reality as it exists begins to manifest itself upon us. The Quran refers to two ideologies of life, either one of which human beings can pursue during their earthly life. One is the ideology which assumes that human life ends with physical death and that there is nothing within man which can survive this physical death. The characteristics of a life lived under this belief system are noted throughout the Quran. In this belief system the human intellect functions only for its own vested interests, thus creating conflict and chaos in the world, as noted in 230. The world created around us currently is based on this very ideology, a world based on human intellect operating outside of the guidance given in the Quran and awash with chaos and conflict. The second ideology is that of those who come to the conclusion that life does not end with physical death but continues beyond it into the hereafter, and that there is something within man, his self, which survives this physical death. They reach this understanding that worldly life is only a stage of human evolution, and that while physical evolution has resulted in the creation of the human body, the next evolution is based on the permanent values which help to create a new life, and a new reality, within us, which will then have the ability to evolve further in the life of the hereafter. The Quran points to this fact to help us understand this part of human evolution and presents its evidence through the transformation of the human self. That change which occurs within the human self after treading on the right path becomes evidence of the hereafter. 2:4. The Quran states, "It is a complete book of guidance for mankind for all times, and the evidence for this is contained within its folds." Its original Arabic text is fully preserved and protected for all times by Allah Himself. 15:9. Since it is a complete book from Allah, there is not going to be any update or amendment required. This has thus eliminated the need for the sending of any more Nabi and Rasool from Allah. No human being has the right to subjugate another human being through man-made laws. Each human being has a self, called nafs in the Quran, which is endowed with the trait of choice and intent. The permanent values and principles given in the Quran need to be followed in order to establish the system of deen, and as a result to eliminate the subjugation of man by fellow men. Since what is contained in the Quran is from Allah, and therefore free from the effects of human emotions and desires, those who develop their self according to its value system can help to establish the system of deen. All those tasks and responsibilities which Allah relates to Himself in relation to the human world, e.g. the distribution of the means of sustenance and nourishment. It is the responsibility of Mu'minin who establish his system of deen to carry out these responsibilities with regards to the whole of mankind. In order to gain the optimum from the Quran, the human intellect needs to function within the light of the Quran and not allow emotions to introduce any bias in its interpretation. Otherwise we will fail to properly understand what the Quran is putting forward for the development of our own self, and a developed self is a prerequisite to establishing deen as a system. Human beings are completely free to make choices and decisions in this world and to then live with the consequences of these. The law of requital operating in the human domain ensures that each and every deed is recompensed and that no one is dealt with unjustly. 45:22. When we become fully conscious of the existence of this law, we become more alert to the impact of our thoughts and deeds on ourself, which keeps on transforming in direct proportion to our deeds, experiences, education, training, etc. Through Iman and Salih deeds we acquire a new self which the Quran calls a new life, and this becomes evidence in itself of the reality of human creation, our existence, the existence of Allah, the existence of the hereafter, and the need for the system of deen. This self is then in accord with the permanent values of the Quran and the requirement for the manifestation of the divine attributes within it with a view to working for the system of deen. Another noteworthy point in understanding and establishing deen is that just like the precision of a chemical formula, the values and laws given in the Quran are also precise, and any deviation from these will never bear those results which are meant to be achieved by following its guidance meticulously. Many people find it hard to comprehend this point and think that a tolerant view of its values may suffice. The mixing of haqq, truth, and batil, falsehood, simply cannot produce the desired results. 2:85. The Quran declares this contamination of human thoughts with regard to its guidance as being shirk, which is declared to be an unforgivable zulm, injustice, meaning that the desired results can never materialize in the human world, e.g. See verse 4:116. When the Quran proclaims to accept Iman, this term has a precise meaning, and if it is followed it will lead to a new dimension of comprehension which can be clearly differentiated from the previous state of belief. Indeed, it will be the beginning of a new life. 824. Without acquiring this new life, we can never come anywhere close to establishing the system of deen, and consequently, mankind will continue to remain engulfed in misery and chaos. The Quran states in 2:256, that there is no compulsion in deen, and anyone who accepts Iman after seeing the evidence of its light has indeed found the strong support of Allah, which will never betray those who choose to follow this path. Once this Iman is followed by righteous deeds, A'mal-e Saleh, then the corresponding change in our inner reality will itself prove to us that this new self cannot be achieved by any other means. This is the final volume of the series as a tafsir of the Quran by the author, and was completed by him in 1984 before his demise in February 1985. Chapter 12 mostly details the story of Yusuf and highlights many facets of the human self which serve as a model for those individuals who wish to strive for the establishment of the system of deen. There are many aspects of this story which are customarily misinterpreted in traditional translations, due to the inadequately developed self of those who translate it, and which cast shadows as a result on the pristine character of Yusuf. Parwez has removed all those shadows using the light of Wahi in the Quran. The Quran wishes each one of us to bring out the best in ourselves in terms of righteousness, so that both individually and collectively we need not suffer in this life. Indeed, Allah wishes man to live a life free from fear and grief. 238. Without the guidance of the Quran, man will always live a life of fear and grief. Each one of us has the potential and capacity to develop a character like Yusuf. The Quran has emphasized here that even if one individual reaches a very high level of a developed self, he can obtain Allah's help to work for the good of mankind. Parwez has also discussed the issue of dreams in considerable length at the end of this chapter. Chapter 13 covers a very important aspect of the human psyche in relation to verse 13:11, i.e., that no change in the outer world can occur until the time that human beings bring a change within their inner selves. There is also a brief discussion on the effect of Quranic guidance on contentment of the human heart, 13:28, and its link to Iman and Saleh deeds. Chapter 14 contains details of the conduct of the messenger Ibrahim, who is presented by the Quran as a model for the whole of mankind, 16:120. There is also mention of the law of rise and fall of nations in the world. Chapter 15 reiterates the importance of the law of requital and points to the fact that the Quran is a permanent and eternal code of life for mankind. It has been protected and preserved by Allah Himself, and it cannot be tampered with by anyone. The Arabic text. There is also reference to that part of the human psyche where people seek miracles and become inclined towards magic and spells. The Quran draws our attention to the immutable laws which are functioning in the universe as well as within the human world. This chapter also includes details of the destruction of the people of the messenger Lut who, despite clear warnings, failed to heed these. In this book the word Allah is used when referring to the Quran, and God is used when reference is made outside of the Quran. The verses quoted are in the format of e.g. 2:20, meaning chapter 2, verse 20. The author has explained the meanings of these verses in his own words, and these are then translated as such from the Urdu text. Occasionally I have added footnotes wherever an explanation is felt necessary to explain some terms further, and these have been marked as ed. Footnotes that are not marked ed. Are from the author himself. I have endeavored to keep the English translation as close as possible to the original Urdu text in choice of appropriate words and terms, and close attention has also been paid to conveying the meanings which the author intended to convey in his interpretation of the Quranic verses. I wish to thank and acknowledge the support provided by Hussain Kais Rani, manager of Talui-Islam Trust, Lahore, and Asif Jalil from Karachi. I also wish to thank Muhammad Salim Akhtar Khan, Nazim, Idara Talui-Islam, Lahore for assistance in elucidating meanings of some of the Urdu and Persian words used in the text. Finally, I am grateful to my wife for her extensive help in the editing of this work. In conclusion, This work is a translation, and as such any ambiguity in the text in the English version which is not present in the Urdu version is my responsibility as translator and editor, and not of the original author. If readers have any questions or comments after reading this work, they are welcome to contact Talu, E-Islam Trust. Ejaz Rasool, Glasgow, UK, January 2022. WhatsApp, 00923104800818.